Casey Joyner will be joining us throughout the football season from ESPN.com. He'll be talking NFC East with us today. We'll break down all the information throughout the course of the year. Casey does it better than anybody when it comes to watching the film. And we look forward to starting another football season with him every Monday and Thursday at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter, at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter. Also, he's doing stuff with the ESPN WWE stuff. He's contributing to that as well. So always in the mix, Casey is. He's got fantasy football, college football, but our first love is the NFL, Casey. And we got a lot to dive into today. How are you, pal?
Doing great. Yourself?
Although I'm speaking for you when I say our first love. You could be a WWE fan first. I don't know.
It's probably an NFL first, but WWE gets the whole year round. So you take the NFL when you get it, and then WWE gets the other 8 months.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about the Lesnar stuff over the course of the week. That story has kind of continued on with that and all the UFC stuff and everything. But the NFL is the king, and obviously right now in this third week of the preseason, I want to kind of look around the division here a little bit. I'll start in Philly. We talked about Dorial Green-Beckham on Monday's segment, but the Eagles are going to try to get him out there with the first team a little bit more. Jordan Matthews hasn't played at all. Nelson Aguilar has been really struggling. Ruben Randall. They've got a bunch of guys that were drafted pretty high here, Casey. Of this group of guys, who has the most potential to kind of surprise? Because I think people are looking at this group. It's been a major topic of conversation in this area is about this wide receiver group and who can emerge if any of these guys. There's a lot of concern. Do you see a guy of that group that can break out from the others and kind of lead the way?
I mean, we're talking Dorial Green-Beckham and such, and if you look at his talent level and some of the things that he's done in the past, from a talent perspective, if you can get him to play to his talent level, he can be a fantastic player. Last year, when he faced tough cornerback competition, either good or great quarterback competition, talking guys who are in the upper half of the league or higher, he averaged 10 yards per attempt on passes thrown his way. That's a really good number against any level of competition, and to do it against that caliber competition is fantastic. So, if he can play to his talent level, then he could be a big impact player. But you could say the same thing for the other players too. Matthews is more of an all-around player. He needs to be in the slot more often. Ackler did a fantastic job at USC for a time, and then Randall's posted some fantastic numbers too. Randall averaged 16.5 yards per attempt on vertical passes last year. It's one of the best numbers in the league. So the Eagles have the talent. It's just a matter of can you get these guys to play to that talent level.
Talk with Casey Joyner here. Yeah, Randall, he's kind of an enigma. He is, the Giant fans who are living in our area, they kind of said good luck with him. What is it about Randall that makes people pull their hair out?
Well, he can go from having that fantastic vertical number I was talking about in yards per attempt, having 5.1 yards on short passes, which is one of the worst numbers in the league. It's just one level of his inconsistency where he can do a fantastic job at times and he can do a horrible job with others. And really last year, if you look at the amount of times that he and Eli Manning had a miscommunication where Eli thought he was going one way and Randall went another. It happens so often with those two, but then it doesn't happen with Eli and the other receivers. It makes me think, okay, it's probably not Eli's fault. It's probably Randall's fault, and it's been happening that way for years. So it's just a matter of maybe you just have to have somebody say, keeping his head in the game every play, telling him this is what you're supposed to do on this play or something along those lines. Because if he could manage that talent level, Randall, as far as production-wise, he does a fantastic job. He's just got to get that consistency down.
Talk with Casey Joyner. Obviously the wide receiver is a problem. Let me ask you, who's a bigger impact in this offense, wideout or tight end in Doug Peterson's offense?
I would say tight end because you've got more proven people at that position. I mean, Zach Ertz had some really good numbers last year, and I think he's got the upside to have even better numbers. And I think you're going to see, let's put it this way, I think you're going to see a more consistent impact from tight end on this offense. And what you're looking for out of the receivers, really what you want is one of those guys, maybe hopefully more than one, but at least one of those guys to develop as a vertical threat on the outside. But at tight end, you're looking for really good, consistent production, and because that's what Peterson, that's what he uses his tight ends for. And you could have, I think they could get even better production of this offense than Peterson got with Travis Kelce in Kansas City if things go well.
How about Ryan Matthews, Sproles, Wendell Smallwood? We haven't seen any of him yet. Kenjon Barner. Do you anticipate? We see Jamal Charles as kind of the guy. When he got hurt, they went to Charchandrick West. When he went hurt, they went to Spencer Ware. Do the Eagles have a running back that is Jamal Charles, meaning a guy who will lead the way? Do they break it up? How do you foresee this offense using the running back talent the Eagles have?
I would hope if they can get the same kind of blocking Kansas City got, because Kansas City was second in the league, I believe, in good blocking rate, which is my metric that measures how effective a run blocking unit is. So if they could get that kind of block, it could be fantastic, because that's the reason Kansas City's running game did so well last year. Charles goes down, and the other backs actually were more productive, as productive or more productive than Charles was, in that Kansas City offense. I don't know that the Eagles have that situation, because Ryan Matthews is a guy who operates as he's more a power back. You want to put him in an eye set, and that's not really what the Eagles do. Sproles is a pass catcher. Smallwood is fantastic. Smallwood had the highest percentage of rushes that gained 10 or more yards last year among Power 5 backs. I mean, he is a guy who can give you some short area quickness. But again, can he hold up in pass blocking? Can he acclimate to the passing offense that this is? So they've got some talent, but I don't know that they're going to mimic Kansas City, because Kansas City has elite run blocking, and Philadelphia can have elite run blocking, but I want to see them do it in this system.
Casey, we know the Eagles defensively with Jim Schwartz are going to be very intriguing. You got this 4-3. They were coming from the 3-4. I want to get your opinion on Fletcher Cox. They got a lot of money tied into him right now. Schwartz has been everywhere, and it seems that everywhere he's been, the tackle in that defense has been a disruptive major force. Do you foresee Fletcher Cox continuing that tradition of Marcel Darius and Demikong Suh, Albert Hainsworth as guys that he has really been able to bring to another level?
Oh yeah, he puts his tackles into situations. He puts his three techniques into situations to let them do that, and he wants them to disrupt. He sets the defense up in a way to say, you are supposed to be our disruptor. The other team may double team you and things. We're going to do everything we can schematically to make that three technique be able to go in and disrupt the offense. That's what it's designed to do. So I would think that would be what they would do for Cox, is to say, yeah, you can, because Hainsworth, by the way, just speaking of him, just the kind of impact you can have in this defense. Hainsworth at one point, he was defeating his run blocks on a nearly 50% basis, which means one out of every two plays he was defeating his run block when he was at his peak. He didn't quite do that when he was with Schwartz, but that's the kind of player he was. He was still a lot better with Schwartz than people gave him credit for, and his Washington. So I think the matter that you got that kind of player that can get that kind of production, I think you could get that out of Cox, but even if you only get it 40% of the time, it's going to be a pretty darn good thing.
All right, Casey, I want to look at some of the teams in the NFC East here. Let's look at the Giants and what they've done as we're getting into this third preseason game now. They made a lot of additions on the defensive side of the ball, but I want to ask you about on offense, where they didn't make a lot of changes except for change the offensive coordinator and elevated him to head coach. Did they have the running game to go with what they have in the weapons in the passing games? Is this team, did they do enough in the run game to really offset what they were? They were very one-dimensional last year.
Yeah, very one-dimensional. I think they're probably going to go with Jennings as their top guy. But Paul Perkins didn't even play his first year at UCLA, and he ended up ranking third in that program's history in career rushing yards and fifth in career all-purpose yards. So that's the kind of player that he can be. And Perkins, by the way, he caught more passes than any running back in UCLA history. So he's going to give them a lot of ability in the backfield to say, hey, I think it might take him till later in the year to fully acclimate. But you've got Jennings early on. You've got a guy like Perkins. Excuse me. And you've got a Shane Vereen who averaged 9 yards per attempt on plays where he got good blocking last year, which is a really good number. I think between those three, as long as everybody stays healthy, I think that they're going to have the kind of running game that's good. Plus, they're going to have such a powerful passing game, too, that the defenses just are not going to be able to sit in the running game, because if Sterling Shepard plays anywhere near as good this year as he did last year, you combine it with Beckham, now you're actually going to have a 1-2 punch in the passing game. And if you've got that, man, it's going to open up the running game. I think that the Giants could have a top 5 offense this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, Beckham now going into his 3rd season. We don't really know. I guess Shepard's going to be the guy on the other side. We don't really know much about Cruz. They lost Randall, who, maddening, but still 8 touchdowns for them last year. So is the passing game going to be better than it was last year?
Again, I think it all depends on Shepard. If Shepard steps up and can do what he can do, yeah, I think it could be even better than it was. Because that's the only problem for the Giants is, mentioned they could be a top 5 offense. If Beckham goes down, I mean, he's that big a part of their offense that they would just, I think that the offense would drop out of the top 10 if he drops out. So he's got to stay healthy and Shepard steps up. But if you've got Beckham staying healthy and you've got Shepard playing to the level that he did, because Shepard posted fantastic numbers on a per-catch basis, on a per-target basis, but Oklahoma just didn't throw the ball to him that often. Even though he was a big playmaker for them, they didn't throw the ball to him that often comparative to some of the other big-name players. So big-name college targets. So if New York will throw him the ball more often, and what he did in college last year translates to the pro level, I think they could have a good 1-2 punch. But it's they could have a top 5 offense as long as OBJ stays healthy.
How's that line?
It's it's a hit or miss. It's something that they're going to have to work on the things. I think they've got it's good, but I think it is a work in progress and such. They've had inconsistencies is what they had in the run blocking last year and in pass blocking and things. So, but it might be one of those things also where if they're not doing run blocking well, then they just go back and do a lot more short passes, which is I think one of the reasons they like to have the pass catching backs, because all 3 of their backs can catch a lot of passes.
What do you think of the defense now with some of the changes they made over there? I mean, they were terrible defensively last year. I mean, it was just you almost. As an Eagle fan, to say you feel bad for them at points, but they were just so bad defensively. Did they do enough this offseason to upgrade?
They did, and here's the thing. Last year they did very well if you're looking at near interceptions and how many interceptions plus near interceptions. A near interception is where defender had a chance to catch the ball and intercept the pass but didn't do it. They were one of the top-rated teams in those 2 categories, meaning that all they got to do is catch more. If they do the same thing this year or even close, they're going to increase their interception total. Their sacks total was terrible. It's going to get better. I think that they've added enough things where they've had enough spots where they were so weak on defense they don't have any other place to go but up. So I think that they're going to be a lot better in a number of ways, but they've got an incredibly difficult slate of matchups, too. So I think it could be, even though they'll play better, when you've got they're playing. I've got 8 games that I consider against powerhouse offenses. Dallas and Washington twice apiece. They got New Orleans, Green Bay, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. When you're playing that caliber of offense, even if they do improve defensively, their numbers might not look that much better, even if they play better.
Casey Joyner's with us, ESPN.com. Of course, looking inside the NFC East. Let's go to Dallas. I want to ask. We were at a conversation about this in the break room today. Dallas last year, everyone's really hammering the fact they didn't have a backup quarterback. It's been kind of a running joke. Prescott, they got him, but they were still close in a lot of games last year, even with the poor quarterback play. And they didn't have Des Bryant. Does that make you feel like having Romo back and Des Bryant, Ezekiel Elliott, that this team is head and shoulders better than the other teams in this division?
They've got head and shoulders upside over the teams in the rest of the division, I would say. I think that they've got that much more talent. Because, again, you look at just a couple years ago when they had the powerhouse running back and they had the vertical passing game. I mean, they were a team that, they can even go to Seattle and beat Seattle up there with that offensive line. So you've got that kind of offensive line. And Zeke, by the way, there are a lot of reasons to think that he can be a bell cow elite running back. People are like, oh, rookies can't do it anymore. Hey, he's a guy who can come in and day one, as long as he stays healthy, he can be a dominant back. So if they've got Romo and they've got Bryant playing to where he didn't, by the way, here's the thing. Bryant was not healthy last year, but he also had one of the worst vertical passers in the league throwing the ball. I think even if Romo were to get hurt, Prescott's going to do a lot better than Castle, because Castle was one of the worst vertical passers of the last decade. So I don't think that the Cowboys can be anywhere near what they were last year. And even if Romo's out for a couple, 3 games, I think the way they've set up their offense now, I think they would be okay and be able to survive a Romo injury.
All right, what about them on defense, though? I mean, 2 years ago, we thought they were going to be historically bad. They played over their heads. Last year, they were average. What are they now?
They need their offense to protect their defense. That's what they need. They need that same situation that a couple years ago. When you looked at the numbers a couple years ago, they were better in a lot of ways, but you started looking at how they performed on a per-play basis. Like, wow, they're not really that good, but their offense keeps them out of those situations. I think they're improved, but they still need their offensive line and their offense to carry that, to keep them from getting in those situations, because that defense, if this offense ends up having to get into shootout situations, it can keep up, but that defense is the sort of defense you don't want that defense in shootout situations. So they're better, but it's going to be that team will go, as long as Romo stays healthy, that team will go as far as their offensive line will carry them.
Talking with Casey Joyner here. Romo, still an elite or whatever. I don't know if he's an elite. I wouldn't put him in that category. That's me personally, but I think he's a top 10 quarterback when he's healthy. But at this age and all the injuries, do you think he still has a season where he can carry a team?
Again, can he stay healthy? Because that's the thing. It's 2 out of the last 5 years he hasn't stayed healthy. So he's missed 10 or more games, or 2 of the past 6 seasons he hasn't stayed healthy. And he's 36, and that's an age where quarterbacks, physiologists have done studies. When you hit the age between 35 and 40, your body deteriorates more than any other 5-year period in your entire adult life. So it's something, or at least entire athletic prime. Let's put it that way. So I think he probably has another year or 2 left in him. But I mean, the Cowboys really just have to make sure he doesn't get hurt, and it's got to be one of those situations where, and there are times when Romo has that I want to be a playmaker and I need to make this play, and that's some of the occasions where it seems to get hurt. And I think he needs to be in a situation to go. He needs to mimic almost maybe not the 1990 Giants or something along those lines, and say, hey, come back and play for the next play, because you've got the kind of offensive line that you don't have to go win this game. They can go win this game. If Romo will take that mindset and he can make sure that he doesn't get hurt, the matchups that they have this year should allow them to have a fantastic offensive season. So I think the Cowboys don't make it this year, then that's when they're going to start really having trouble with Romo's future.
Oh yeah, he's getting up there. The injuries starting to pile up for him, and then there's the Redskins, who, hey, look, they won the division, and it's funny because you don't have a whole heck of a lot of people who were buying into them. Casey, should they?
Here's the thing: Kirk Cousins last year throws 21 passes on short pass plays. That's where you throw the ball 10 or fewer yards downfield. He has 8 vertical touchdowns. That's where you're throwing a pass 11 or more yards downfield. It's one of the biggest ratio in favor of short passes of any quarterback in the league. So he's throwing, last year he was throwing a bunch of dink and dunk passes because they didn't have a vertical threat. Once Jackson got hurt, they didn't have anybody to throw the ball deep to. If Jackson stays healthy, Doxson could step up, and maybe they can have another season like he did last year. Cousins could then get those vertical pass numbers, move those up there. Instead of a 21-to-8 ratio, maybe he has only 16 short touchdown passes, so maybe he throws 16 verticals, and he has, now he's increasing his numbers. If he can get a better balance there, it's going to help their offense in a number of ways, and it would be a domino effect. But that's the key. If those vertical numbers don't go up, what you saw out of Washington last year, that's their cap.
All right, Casey Joyner's with us looking at the Redskins, and this team with Cousins, he's really the guy that you talk about. But realistically, they got Norman on defense. They added some pieces on that side of the ball. Where is the flaw on the Washington Redskins? What is the reason why people are still – is it Cousins? Is he really the make or break? Are they a good team without – you take Cousins off and take the rest of the team? Do they have the most talent?
You want to see a quarterback – you used to be like back in the day a few years ago – Phillip Rivers could have bad receivers around him. He had Gates, but a lot of times he didn't have a lot of great receivers, and he was still posting great vertical numbers. And I think last year, Washington looked at Cousins after Jackson went down and said, okay, we're going to throw a lot of short passes. And Cousins proved he could do that. But he's got to be able to throw vertical. Having Jackson back will help, but I think that's why Washington didn't give him an extension either, or why they weren't committed to him long term, to say, we don't know that you're that guy. We can get a lot of guys to come in here and throw short passes. A lot of quarterbacks can come and do that. And Cousins is really good at that. But if you can't go vertical, then you can't commit to a guy long term. So I think this year that he is the key in the sense that he's got the weapons now to throw vertical, but it's can you be successful at that level? Because if you can't, find another quarterback. And if you can, the Redskins are the quarterback of the future.
Is Norman a good fit on that defense, or is he a product of Carolina?
I think he's partially a product of Carolina. Mind you, before a couple seasons, or 3 seasons ago, he wasn't that good of a cornerback, and he's been playing, really well of late. But part of it is playing at Carolina. Carolina has that fantastic front seven, and that gives him, a lot of help and make sure quarterbacks are, have to throw to him when they're under pressure and such. So that helps. I think he's going to be better than what they had, but that's a relative term. I don't think he's going to be what he was in Carolina, though. I think the change in system is going to expose him as being a good but not great cornerback.
Interesting stuff. To you, who's the best team in this division?
Dallas, because of the offensive line. That gives them a really huge edge because they can control game tempo better than any other team in the division can control game tempo if they're using their best strength. So as long as Dallas's offensive line stays healthy, as long as they don't, they have Romo, or if Prescott can play anywhere to where he did, as long as getting decent quarterback play with that offensive line, that's the team that they can come into a game more often and not control the tempo better than any other team in the division. So that makes them the best.
All right, Casey Joyner looking at the NFC East. It's week 3 of the preseason. You'll see all the starters for one final week. They'll shut it down next week, and then we'll have regular season football starting Thursday night, September the 8th, here on 97.3 ESPN. Casey Joyner will be along for the ride, and we will certainly be looking forward to that. Are you working on any new pieces for the WWE site?
Working on something on Mr. Bob Backlund.
Oh, wow. I
went up to Bristol a few weeks ago on things, and he was up there, and we did there's a little video on ESPN Fantasy where I made a pick of C.J. Anderson in fantasy football last year, said C.J. Anderson was going to be this great pick, and he wasn't, so Bob Backlund put me in his chicken wing crossface, and he locks that thing in too. People don't think that they they say it's a work and things. I was like, wow, that was intense. He makes sure it gets locked in real tight. So yeah, I'm doing something on him because he's got some interesting off-screen material on him. He's a great guy off-screen. I spent some time. I went over to his house and interviewed him and things, and got an interview. I don't know when it's going to be posted, but it should be very soon.
Good stuff. Check out the ESPN WWE on Twitter, at Casey Joyner TFS on Twitter, and here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, man.